Morning. How's everybody
Good
doing?
morning. Great.
Yeah, good.
All right, let's start, and then whoever needs to join later can join. Um, so let's start with our 10 minutes of silence. I think everybody on the call right now is aware of what we do. So I'll keep the time and we will start the silence. We all just put yourselves on mute. Actually, I can do it from here. Okay, here we go. Just come out of it slowly. Let's give it a minute. Okay. So we've been doing this for quite some time. The silence practice. Is it when you guys now do it? Um, is it deeper? Do you feel the quiet and the stillness when you go? I think that you guys have to unmute. Can you unmute yourself? Pete, Anil, Bob, Srinivas, when you do the silence practice, do you feel, are you still, um, do you feel the silence better? Do you feel it deeper?
Yes, Sri Ashish. It I'm able to observe the thoughts as they are fleeting, not being attached to them. Yes.
Okay, good. Pete, Anil, I know Anil, you're doing this regularly now. You feel the silence deeper or quieter?
Yes, yes. Yeah, I think for a longer period of time. So when I sit in meditation, I don't do it as regularly, but when I sit, I try to sit at least for 30 minutes, preferably for an hour. And yeah, I think the quality of meditation also has improved in the last month or so.
Very good. Very good. And how does your day remain after that? Do you see any difference in your day in terms of your reactions or in terms of, um, how you're feeling throughout the day? Does that silence stay with you for longer periods of time now, or the moment you're done, you go to work and you're back in the daily grind?
No, I think it has. I would say that throughout the day also there is a calmer kind of uh, demeanor for so I would say maybe about 10-15% improvement. Sometimes when you don't like something, I think you get upset, but I think that has become less now because that's the autonomous system. You see something immediately, I think there's no time for thinking, you just react. But that reaction time has gone down, um, and because I'm also consciously trying to do this right during the day hours, also trying to keep telling myself that I need to remain calm even things don't go the way it should be. So that has helped a little bit. It maybe like 10%. um, that's it.
Okay, good. Pete, have you been practicing?
Uh, Not very often, but
Okay,
definitely on Saturday or weekend I do.
okay,
Just now I observed 10 minutes. It was something unique feeling. Mind is agitative mind normally, and always trying to ask question and answer myself. In the silence, that agitative mind disappears, and kind of a hope arrives. I always see the hope arrives out of the fear. when the fear I want to eliminate, that hope comes up. Um, then always my mind is looking, what is the truth actually? Why this fear comes up, and that hope removes it. No, I'll try to remember your words. I also should disappear in the universe. So where the soul is there, those are all thoughts went away. It comes in last 10 minutes, all of them. Then this repetitive mechanism definitely heals us. So this is what I felt, the beauty in this realization of this universal mechanism. Probably that may lead to joy. These are all
Good.
thoughts went into my mind.
Very good. Good. So today, so let's take a segue from that. So I know, Bob, you were not present in the last satsang. So we had some interesting conversations about mind, thought, and the nature of mind. And we had some people who had joined us, as new. So, they came from a perspective of, them being as an individual I, and then, about conditioning and what starts happening, the environmental impact, the social impact, the growing up, familial impact. So all that, we discussed last time. And I think where we left it off in the conclusion was on the issue of identification, that all of this cause of suffering and all of this creation and what's going on and how we react and how we get engaged, and it's all about a mistaken or a false identification with the notion of a separate existence. Now, in today's thing, so yesterday was something interesting happened. So I wanted to share this with you guys. So my cousin from India was visiting us. So and then I think most of you know that my brother also um, lives with me here. So as everybody's trying to find some answers to whatever they're going through, my cousin basically, the conversation started with how he's doing. And just to give you a quick background about my cousin, so a few years ago he sold his company. So financially now, he's got the financial freedom as we all perceive it. But what interestingly he said is that in the last 4 years, he took time off. He's gone and seen whatever he wanted to see, all his bucket list. He did all that because he had the capacity to do it. But he says even today, now he says, I started a foundation. I'm doing this. I've got money. I've set up my family. I've done all, but I still don't have peace of mind. And he's like, I'm still, he said, I don't know how to explain it, but I'm still, I still suffer. Like every time thoughts are still coming to me, I'm still trying to figure out now what should be my next thing and what should be my next project. And I've tried to do this and I've tried to do that. And, but I'm finding no joy. And then he said something, he said, look, from this whole process of the last 4.5 years, I learned two things. One was that money, while good to have, but doesn't really bring you the necessary fulfillment. And he said, let me explain what that means. Is he says, when I didn't have the money, I had the zeal, I had the ambition, I had some purpose to do something. Now, even with having money, that even that is gone now. And even though I have the money with me, but whatever I could do, I've done, and I'm now bored. I'm like, I don't know what to do with it anymore. I've set it up. And the third thing he says is, now, first I was chasing it. Now I'm still suffering because I'm trying to figure out how to keep it. So while money has come to me, but it has still got me, in its grasp, or it still kind of imprisoned me. And the second thing he said was that what is happening is that what I've realized is that every time I stop thinking, every time I stop analyzing my thoughts, every time, something comes, and he says, I'm getting thoughts all the time. He says, I'm a very, he's a thinker like Pete. So he's like, I get constant thoughts, and I'm getting all sorts of thoughts. But the moment I stop thinking about them, analyzing them, I find that my suffering goes away. So that was interesting. And then, he wanted to ask me questions, but then during these conversations, when you have people, so then there was an example given to try and explain what I was, not by me, but again, when we're three, usually these two are, the two of them are quite, the personality wise, they're quite alpha. So when they talk, I basically remain quiet because they're not listening anymore. They're talking. So then one of them gave an example of, hey, let me explain what all this means is that, it's like, playing Mario, Mario Brothers, the video game, and that there's a creator and that there's Mario, and Mario doesn't have, Mario believes that within the game that it has to do X, Y, and Z, but somebody else seems to be controlling it. And before I could explain and um, kind of remove that example as well, um, that look, even if there is Mario, then who do you believe you are? And they both perceive themselves to be Mario. So saying that, look, there's a creator, there's Mario, and we are, just basically simulation. Somebody else is controlling it. And before I could remove that, the conversation then went somewhere else. But they still believed that there was a creator and that they were actually Mario. So there was still this issue of duality. So taking from that, I was like, okay, this is interesting because this, I guess, may be also doubts in other people's mind if they're looking at it from that perspective. Then they still have not received the clarity as to what non-dualism means. Because in this case, in that example, who do you think you are? Are you Mario or are you the creator, right? Or are you something beyond the creator, right? So I think today I wanted to do something, and I've not tried this before, but I want to try it with you guys. Are you? So I want to try and do an intellectual exercise today with you guys. Do you want to try it? You want
Yeah,
to do
sure.
something that? So what I'm going to do is I want you to close your eyes, and I'm going to say certain things to you and run you through a process, right? And see, let's see if you can go through the process of identification and then a process of to stop identifying and see how you understand after that. So, what I would like you guys to do is to close your eyes and try and imagine yourself. The starting point will be just forget about everything, like whatever you've learned, whatever you think, you analyze, whatever you believe in, just forget about everything for a few minutes during this exercise. Become a blank piece of paper, like space, blank space. So if you can close your eyes and try and imagine, and then as I say certain things, I will run you through this imaginary imagination process and then try and bring you back to it to explain how this whole process is working. So it's going to be an intellectual exercise, but let's try and see what comes out of it. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you can close your eyes and just for a few minutes try and just forget about everything. Think of yourself as blank space, nothing in it. Now imagine that something spontaneously has arisen in this blank space and has become aware of this blank space. Now, at this point, you are aware of the blank space. Now imagine that you have started to dream and created some characters in the dream. Now identify with the dream. You are now the character. Those thoughts that are coming to you, they are yours. Analyze those thoughts. Figure out what to do. See what is going on. How can I solve this problem? What can it, what is my next, what is my future? What happened in my past? Start analyzing. Now stop analyzing. Remember your original where you started from, which was the blank space. As you remember that blank silent space, disconnect from the thoughts you had wrongly identified. Let them go. You had imagined characters in your dream. Let them go. Before the dream started, you had become awareness or you were aware of some silence. Let that go. Now stay in the silence that you started with. now slowly come out of it. Okay. So, what did you understand from this? Do you feel anything? Did you understand anything?
Yeah, yeah. All this process we went through has not are not real actually. Only real was silence. And
Yes. So, and each time you went to the next process, did
yeah,
you forget about the previous? So when you move from just being silent to becoming aware,
yeah,
did you forget about the original silence and became awareness? Then
yeah,
from awareness, when you started dreaming,
yeah,
did you forget about the awareness and you became identified with the dream, with the character that you started? You started to believe that you were now the character.
yeah. Right,
Then from the character, you started to imagine certain
yeah,
things, some thoughts, and you
mm,
identified with those thoughts.
right,
So now you forgot how the character had actually come to be,
yeah,
right? So, and then when you went back, as you disconnected,
yeah,
you came back to the space where you had
space.
originally started.
Right, yeah,
Did everybody get that?
yeah.
Bob, Srinivas, Anil?
I literally was enjoying the moment of silence when you said, just think of a blank space. All the thoughts were coming to my mind. Obviously started with focusing on my breath. Then I figured there is a very subtle silence. It just feels like in space, like I was focusing on that. Literally, the mind was blank. I was just listening to and focusing on listening to that sound of silence. It was so peaceful. You don't feel like coming back from it.
Very good, Bob.
It was
Very good.
so peaceful. I completely, to be honest with you, I really did not know what you were saying. You now said that think of a character. I did not even hear that.
Wonderful.
I
Super.
was completely immersed in it. I don't want to open my, I don't want to hear. Well, obviously something happened, so I came to hear the sound from outside. I know there is a TV downstairs. I heard that. But for a few moments, the mind was completely blank. I was focused on that sound of that space,
And what,
completely silent.
yeah,
Beautiful.
beautiful, right? Did you, and what will you, I know it's very difficult to put it in words, but
I really
during
can't
that
say
time, did you feel that undisturbed peace beyond anything?
beyond. Believe me, this was, I don't know. I don't know how long you've been talking. I didn't pay attention to any clock or watch, but this is the most peaceful time. I wish I can remain like that for a long time.
So this is great. Now you have tasted, you have experienced something, you've tasted a fruit which you have never tasted before. So far, you had heard that there is a fruit which is very sweet and very this and very that. But today you have tasted it. And
It's beautiful.
this
I
is
don't know.
what, yeah, and this is what this constant remembrance of silence will bring. So the more you stay in it, the longer it will get. And this is now where the practice. Now you have tasted something that you've only heard so far about. You've asked me questions about it, or maybe you've read it in other, things that you followed. But today you've tasted something beyond that is not expressible.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful,
Yeah.
Bob. This is very good. This is super.
Sound of silence. It's so
Sound.
beautiful.
Yeah.
It's complete. You don't hear anything from outside. You're just immersed in. I don't know where is that sound from.
It just is. That's your
Mm.
original state of being. Your silence is your original state of being. It doesn't come from it. Has no origin. That is the origin of all things. And the end of all things. Everything else in between is just imaginary. It's all in between is just that you forget. But once you stick in this, then you've seen that there is actually nothing out there except for silence. Only when the mind reactivates does everything else comes into being. So what does this tell you? That the mind, which is temporary, can go either way. You can use the tool initially to find its way back, or the same tool can be engaged outwardly. So this whole practice of what Patanjali and Buddha and from people who have come to leave behind is only to bring you back to the silence, to make you remember your original state of being. It's the same thing. It's going this way or that way. You can
Mm-hmm.
use it for both. It's your instrument. It is the self which is original, the conscious, that awareness that's appeared. It's its tool. It can either go this way and become identified with the world and go through all its rigmarole, or it can realize that this is only imaginary, but its original state of being is pure, is silent, doesn't require anything. It's still aware, but there's a whole different purity and joy in it that the mind is usually trying to seek outwardly in other things. It's already there within you. I didn't do anything. You didn't do anything. You just touched your own true nature. I didn't give you anything. I just, you touched it yourself. I only pointed towards it. And
Mm.
everybody has got it. It's not unique to me or you or somebody else or to Buddha or no.
Mm.
Everybody's got it. It's the same across the board, which is what non-duality actually means, that the underlying silence, the origin of all, is one and the same. That point doesn't change means the experience that you had, if Pete would touch it, he would have the same identical experience. That silence is one and the same. That's permanent. That is your base that you start
Mm-hmm.
from, and then when you wake up, you end up there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is wonderful today.
Mm-hmm.
Anil?
Yeah.
Yeah. As soon as you said that, imagine blankness, I was aware of it, right? Because you are aware of that blankness. Step two, be aware of it. I was always, even in the first step, I was aware of it. Then you guided us to a dream. So the first dream came that in this space, a tennis ball is bouncing up and down, and I can see it, not attached to it, not associated with it, just watching it. Then you said, think about a character. So I thought about like a car that I'm driving and going different places. So I was aware of that. And then the thought changed, or the dream changed, that actually we are doing something in India to solve the diabetes problem at a very large scale, at a population level scale. I was aware of that. But all this time, either purposely or consciously, I was not associated with any of this. I was just watching it. I was just seeing it from the very first place. I did not have any feelings of peacefulness or happiness or misery or anything, nothing. Just being aware of what I was seeing. So that was my experience.
Good. So no attachment to anything, right?
No, nothing.
Okay.
Just
But
watching them happening. And I'm still standing at the shore, right? At the very beginning, where we started to imagine the very moment you said, think about blank space. I'm saying I'm sort of like seeing the blank space. There were a couple thoughts. Is it a black blank space or is it a white blank space? But it is space.
right.
So thoughts are there, but I'm not associated with them. That's the kind of experience I had.
Okay. Good. Pete. Pete told me. Srinivas.
Yes, Sri Ashish. As Anil mentioned, I also altered between is it a dark space or mm,
White
fully
space.
bright space? Um, Again, that awareness, I try to minimize that. The space itself, I tried to remove. I don't know if I could remove that from my mind. Um, um, I I'm in line with what Anil described, but here and there I try to do with removal of the space, but I don't know if I could do that. And awareness question is still there. How we remove the awareness itself is there in my mind. That's all, Guruji.
Right. So no, there's no removal of awareness, right? Because awareness itself, um, that is something that nobody, at least I have not found anybody in my readings or in my own experience that um, that removal happens. There is still awareness of, so there is still that subtle, because as long as we are here and we are um, still watching, right? Um, Maybe there's no identification with the dream, but we are still watching the dream. So somebody is seeing the dream. And if you are still aware that it is a dream, then that awareness has to remain, which is what has been defined in scriptures as pure consciousness. Even Bob, when he experienced silence, he said, I'm still aware that there's silence. Right? So there is that still that subtle duality that so that is an automatic process because that is always there. The blank space, as I mentioned to you, is always there. So it's a very subtle. So it's very difficult to, I guess, to describe and explain. So I always tell people the realization would be to the point of being aware of the silence. We've discussed transcendence, and then that portion, will happen. If it happens, people define that as mahasamadhi, and but no way, no validation of that. The silence is within, it's blank, but there's no validation that what happens, as Bob said, that look, there's nothing, I can't hear any sound, I can't hear anything, I'm only existing in this blank space of silence, but you're still aware that you exist. So, and that's been my experience throughout. um, so I think if you can get to the point of um, being aware of the blank space and holding onto that blankness and remaining in that for 24/7, then you know uh, That is what has been defined as liberation, I would call that. Look, you've not aware of, you know, uh, nothing, then, you know, the way of life, you're completely at peace within yourself. Nothing is fluctuating within you. Whatever is happening on the outside in the, you can call it the dream drama, whatever, but nothing actually is creating any fluctuations, or there are no, you know, there's no thoughts that are identified, or you identify with any thoughts or any character or anything. Everything is one and the same. They're all, you know, part of the same consciousness. So, um, but now, has this understanding, now can you, the key would be that you've all experienced something today. You've all understood this from the point of view of watching it from the original witness or the original seer's point of view. Can you now carry this understanding? The practice is to remember this now all the time, to remember just watching all the time. Because what happens is that when you get involved in the day to day life, you forget that you are actually the seer and you identify with the scene. And this false identification is the cause of all, is the root cause of all suffering. The moment you come back and you remain in this realization, so the realization part, what we call self realization, is to just realize that you are the original seer. Exactly what today Anil and Srinivas, you have both experienced. If you can remember all the time that you are just the seer, then everything else after that has no relevance, at least to you.
Yeah. Yesterday, these days, at least for the last 1 month, I have been reading this Patanjali's book, very slowly. And one of the things that I want to do is kind of remember some of the shlokas in this Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. So I was just kind of surfing the YouTube, and I came across um, someone who is actually interpreting. There, she actually came to Netherlands. She's, her mom was a scholar in Sanskrit and Vedic sciences and all that. So she came to Netherlands and she was giving a speech at the, not the speech, a workshop at the Indian Embassy in Netherlands. And so she talked about, when it was written, why it was written. It is not like original, it is a compilation of the previous learnings about, yoga. But, and towards the end, one of the things she said, I think that was really helpful. She said, I'm going to do a practice with you all, who were sitting in that embassy, taking her workshop. She said, first you think about an object, right? Again, Sri Ashish, what you're saying is that not being attached, not being identifying. So she was trying to do similar things. She said, look at something, an object. Just look at it, nothing associated with it, right? And then she said, dim the lights. Now go inside and see all the senses, perceptions that you're feeling inside. But don't think that they are yours. They are like the object that you saw, like a chair or a table or a microphone that you saw. You were just seeing it. Nothing outside of it, just looking at it as a separate object. Do that with perceptions. And then the third thing she said, so with the object outside, perceptions in the body. And the third thing she said, now with your thoughts, you're still not your thoughts. You're just seeing them like clouds floating around in the sky, and you are the sky. But in all these cases, you are just the witness. You have nothing to do with any of these. And I thought that that was a good way for her to kind of take people that how they are different than what they are seeing, what they're engaged in, what they're feeling, what they're perceiving. Such a good way to kind of look at it. And this exercise that we did this morning, exactly the same thing. I'm just here at the shore. I'm just looking at whatever is happening because you are guiding us. So my imagination or my thoughts were going there, whatever you were saying to do, I was doing them, but I was at the shore, meaning the self that is at the shore. I'm just looking and following whatever you were saying, but never associated with them regardless. So I think that is the practice that certainly is helping us, or at least helping me. And Patanjali is basically, as you mentioned, Buddha, Patanjali, they all have exactly the same thing. Just the experiencing of it um, takes a while.
Very good, Anil.
I
So
have a
that's,
comment on that,
yeah,
Sri Ashish and Anil. See, we are also a piece of the whole experience that is happening. When you are asking us to observe the space and dream, all that, you, me, and what has been dreamed, all are one unit that's creating an experience, and experience is what is happening. So we can't say that we are on the shore or within the experience. Like that is how it feels after listening to Anil, and also my own conditioning of how this type of um, talk should be, kind of thing. Means in my mind, over a period, I recognized that in an experience, observed, observer, everything is there. And all that is what completes that experience, and experience is what is happening. So, yeah, I don't know if I communicated properly or
yep,
not.
good.
There is no separate observer or observed thing or dreamed thing. Everything is happening. It's just like a water flowing. Where means I don't know, but it is flowing. That's all.
Correct. And but there is still there is still a base, even if things are, if there are observed and observing happening, it is still happening within a space.
Yeah,
Yep.
within
I
a
will tell you
space.
something, Srinivas. You know, the problem is that when we are engaged in what is happening with us, with our body, with our thoughts, whatever we are doing, we have ups and downs. When some good news comes, we are happy. When something bad happens, we are upset. Right? Right? That is a truth. We all can recognize that and accept that. This practice of observer versus the observed, if you remain observer, not the observed, then those things, ups and downs with different things, will go away. That's the practical aspect of it, that how I'm actually looking. If I'm not associated with it, if I'm looking from the top, I'm seeing, this is happening to the character, Anil, who's actually going through these bad times and good times. I'm not affected. That means my inner peace that is there will not get disturbed because that is the original peace. So I see it more from a practical perspective. I get involved in the character, Anil, then I have ups and downs. I have fear, anxiety. It's not easy. I can say this thing, but it's not easy. But the theory is, if you are outside of it, just observing it, the theory is you will not feel ups and downs of emotions.
So Srinivas,
Excellent.
Buddha didn't ever debate about finality. Buddha never debated about God, creator, um, soul, none of it. Buddha basically said, look, when I saw suffering, when I was shown suffering for the first time with the four, scenes that happened, which was, poverty, death, old age. Um, uh, he said, look, if there is this thing, then there must be, is there something out there that can, you know, permanently alleviate the suffering that I am feeling inside by watching these things which I had not seen. I have this deep emotional suffering within me by watching somebody die or watching somebody get old. Because in his first 30 years, the king had ensured that he never left the palace. So he was not introduced to any of this. He was introduced to pleasure, but he was never introduced to any of this, suffering. So when he came back and he said, look, I found I found an answer to the suffering. He did not get into any debates on what was abstract because he knew that there was no way that he would be able to explain to people, this abstract concept, especially if, as Bob experienced something today. Now, if he goes and explains to his wife or somebody else, they can't, they'll not be able to grasp that because they just don't know what that means. They'll be able to try and comprehend and have theoretical conversations and try to figure out what he's trying to say with his experience. But they won't be able to, right? Which was so. What Buddha said is, look, let me give you a path which is known as the middle path. I'll give you these steps to do, which will basically alleviate all your suffering. And if you continue on down this path, and you continue and you practice, and then I can tell you that a time will come when you will wake up, and that will remove permanently all your suffering, which people wrote as liberation, nirvana, whatever you want to call it. So here also, all of this pointing, whether it is me or Ramanna or Buddha or Jesus or whoever you want to follow, the end of the day, it is only about realizing that, look, there is only the seer, understanding that so that the ignorance or the false knowledge, you want to call it, gets removed. And once that removed, you bring that knowledge into your day to day life so that you remain peaceful within yourself, so that nothing that is happening, good, bad, ugly, whatever, there is no fluctuation because you are now come to the realization that there is something within you that is permanently silent and still, which is observing, permanently, perpetually observing or witnessing the dream ground.
Yes,
And that's
yes.
it.
From your talk, what I realize is there are two things. One is liberation from the experience, and another one is having a better experience. And you are suggesting even Anil talk is more of having a better experience initially, maybe later liberation from the experience. Is that so?
That is correct. So step by step.
So now
Step.
better experience is what we are discussing, not liberation from the experience.
So even better experience will happen when the understanding sets in and you practice. They're all linked together. Only by liberation and understanding this can you have a better experience so that you don't identify with the experience. You can then fully enjoy their experience without the identification. Because the moment you identify with that experience and you forget that that experience is just, imaginary, then you tend to suffer or have pain or whatever, or have happiness or joy. You have these different emotions. But how do you remain is by remaining constantly aware that you are a witness. You're
Mm.
always a witness, permanently witnessing. Because
Because
things
yes, Srinivas, experience is, you got to go above the experience, because experience is good or bad, right? But if you're just a witness standing aside of that experience, that's the liberation. You're not bound with anything anymore. That is the liberation. If you think about this, if you are, everything is experience. And if experience is there, there will be a good experience, there will be a bad experience. But imagine yourselves outside of that experience, just watching the experience. Now you're not associated with it. That is the liberation. There's nothing good or
Agreed, and
right.
but I'm saying that the talk is more of how to experience it in a better way is how it feels. I'm saying when you describe observe them thoughts and do this that
Right.
all that feels more like your intention inside or your clinging is towards the pleasure and better
No, I'm
experience is
not.
how it feels,
I'm
I'm
just there.
saying. Even transcending
No,
the experience is more of you are trying to find better experience rather than really getting unhooked from the experience, is what I'm saying.
one thing is true. I'm not trying. I'm certainly trying intentionally not to have bad experience. That is for sure. Right. So the and that cannot happen if I'm actually feeling good experience, because then only bad experience will happen, right? What, so you have to go above the two. So in the process, you will remove the bad experience. So when you are just a witness, you are also not kind of extremely happy or whatever it is. If the original nature is of peacefulness, that is your original state, then you are there. But what you have done in the process is you've come above the experience. You're just aware. And I do not know how else to explain it. Just aware that these things are happening. You are not enjoying it and you are suffering it. You are above both emotions.
so, Srinivas, let me try and see if I can. So, if you are not identified with an experience, then you don't classify it as good or bad, right? Correct,
Absolutely.
Srinivas? Correct?
So, Guruji, well, I want you to explain that one more time.
Okay.
Say
So,
that.
I said that if you are not identified with an experience, then you don't classify that experience as good or bad. Classification only comes if you identified with it, that whether it was a good experience or a bad experience.
Okay.
So, a time will come as you practice, the identifier, which we always talk about, this notion of I, that dissolves completely. So the classification also does not happen. Whatever is happening is happening is happening.
Yes, Sri
Right?
Ashish.
So there is no because there is no classification that this is a joyful or this is a sad, or there is no attachment to it. There's no classification. So whatever is just the way it is.
Yes, agree.
Right. So if that at that stage, and again, remember, we start with an intellectual exercise. We start with an intellectual process, but it cannot only, if you don't practice this, then this intellectualization must become in a lived reality. That means you should, just the way you feel the identification process, just the way that you feel all these emotions, you will also stop identifying. That non-identification will also be a lived reality. You will experience it. I'm using the word experience because I
Uh,
don't have any
I
other
am.
word to I don't have any other word to say it. But it's a knowing. It's as good a knowing as today you know that there is an experience, and that is a good experience about that It's that knowing. But
mm.
practice only will bring it. So it's not only an intellectual exercise that look, I've understood it, wonderful, because so till Bob had not, like, Bob actually had this. Bob had a knowing of this today. So far, I don't know whether he's had this in the past, but so far it was all intellectual conversations, intellectual understanding, intellectual reading. But today now he knows that there is something called silence, and not the usual silence of not talking, but there is a very deep silence. So liberation basically means that you have now living in the dream, or appear to be in the dream, without being attached or of the dream. Again, I know I'm trying to explain things to you, something which is unexplainable in words.
I
So,
understand, Sri Ashish. What you are saying is just go to the movie, enjoy the movie. Don't worry whether it is horror or comedy. Anything is fine because it's just a movie, and just enjoy the movie rather than worrying about what's happening in the movie, is what you are
yeah.
saying.
So initially, I'm saying that it will be more an understanding and an effort, that each time you go watch the movie, you've understood that it's just a movie, and not to identify it and just enjoy it. So you will make an effort to do that. Eventually, a time will come when you will go to the movie, and it will have no, you don't have to think about it, that is it a movie and should I identify with it, or am I identifying with it, or it was a good movie or a bad movie, or none of it. You just watch it for what it is, without even, so you start being, as we call it, being. And that's the way I can explain this.
Only yesterday, I have this thought: why non-existence or being detached is preached rather than. Is it preached? I don't know. I believe you are not distinguishing between both attachment and detachment, but it feels more like get detached. Yeah.
So
I'm,
get, so get detached to what?
right, right, right.
Right? You're saying get detached to something. Something, you have to have something there to be, means what is the point of being attached to a dream, something imaginary?
Mm. That is happening now. Dream. We are in the dream.
Yes, yes, that, and that is the problem. So that is what's
Right.
happening. You started to believe something which is imaginary.
Mm.
Good. Pete, you had a question?
No, I'm just going through all the steps myself. Um, one thing I learned today is the power of silence. We are all filled with agitative mind, complexity of things bombarded our thoughts, and fear, suffering, everything. This media of being silent removes that 90% garbage is removed there. Then there is still 10% is there in the during silence. That should there, as I put it myself in a summary form, the hope and all these things, fear and everything is gone. Hope will remove the fear, then peace will come. That is where uh, all other stuff like further teachings of yours is how we should eliminate I itself. That should dissolve. Those are the exercises. Still, we are not able to do that one completely. And all those steps will lead to the joy. And eventually, joy itself is not a final ultimate goal, in my opinion. Ultimate goal is a liberation, which you mentioned. I mean, still we have to go through process a few more times with you, then maybe we'll realize it. So everything is a dream actually in between
Yes.
all the steps.
So, so look at this way: the ultimate goal is to stop believing that you are bound.
Okay.
because your starting point is your you
Yeah.
are right, because you believe you're bound, hence you seek liberation. The ultimate goal is to stop believing you're bound.
Yeah. Mm, that will take some time. It is, a lot of
Okay,
practice.
start. You're here, Pete. You're on these calls. You come, you attend. That's
Yeah.
your starting point.
Right, right,
Something within you is wanting to go back
right,
to its
right.
source.
Sri Ashish, it feels more like going to a drug recovery addiction center for 1 hour. But again, we go back and immediately after the call,
Yeah.
we inject all these drugs.
Yeah.
That's a good
Analogy.
analogy, Srinivas.
Yeah.
um,
Perfect analogy.
good, good. Okay, I guess we're at 11:20. Should we close off here? Any other questions? And just Anil, it's interesting that you're reading the sutras, but I started another. Uh, I'll share with you, Anil, and everybody else once it's done. But I've started to interpret the Yoga Sutras in my way, from my understanding. So it's a
Yeah,
comparison of, just as you said, I've taken Patanjali's Yoga Sutra and actually sutra by sutra, I've started to map it out and try to explain that in through the threefold path as well.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So uh,
The
It's
best
another
thing
it's
you could
uh,
do, Sri Ashish, if you are, I know for sure you have read that. Is it possible you can at least point out how do we practice in a daily life? So there are 8 sutras, right?
yeah,
Eightfold path, Jama, Niyama, Asana, and Pranayama, and all that.
yeah,
Put that in a plainly, hey, if your day starts at 6 or 7 a.m. in the morning, try to do this much at this hour or this much at this hour. Hopefully, we'll get somewhere. I know it is very well prescribed set of instructions the way he has approached it. We know we read, but we don't practice. Would you able
right,
to put that for a because you have been through what we are going through.
right.
See, we have a daily struggle, we have obligations, we have responsibilities. How do we fit all that stuff? At least for a few minutes, we can practice some of it. We'll get somewhere.
So Bob, in the new book, the threefold path book that I finished, and I think I
Hmm.
had initially, I think you were in India at that time. I
Hmm.
think I'd shared a copy with you. Of course, now I've done a lot of updates to that. But I think if you read that book, I think I've tried to. Anil, do you think we've covered, or at least I've covered what Bob is saying in that book?
Yeah, I think that should be that's a great book. But I think what Bob is asking is, I think what you're trying to do, sort of like we are used to a very good set of instructions that people follow in their practical lives, right? We all have things, if there were any kind of a guidebook. That's what I believe what Bob is saying, that you have your teachings. We have kind of studied, Yoga Sutra from Patanjali. But is there a simpler way of saying from 5 a.m. to 10:30 p.m., this is sort of what you should do? I think that would be quite practical,
Okay, okay,
valuable information.
okay. Let me
Hmm.
see. Okay, Bob. Let me see if I can put something together. I'll go through my thing as well because I'm just doing the final read of the book before it starts going to the publishers.
Hmm.
So let me see if what you're saying is covered in there. If not, then let me see if I can create a separate, as Anil is saying, a small booklet or a guide booklet that maybe you can people can carry with themselves with simple instructions of, yeah, um, day to day, this is what you should do. I created a day to day journal as well. um, but I think what you're asking is a simple instructions of what somebody's day should
Mhm.
look like, right?
Right.
Okay. Let me see if I
That'll
can
be
put
so,
something.
yeah, that'll be so useful. That'll be
Yeah, and
great.
what I'll do is when I start that, when I do it, I'll share it with you because you raised it. Then
Mm.
you tell me whether it's hitting, whether that's what you were looking for, right? Because if you were looking for that and then you do it, then that becomes a validation that, hey, what you'd asked for, and then we can share it and we can share it with, the world as well. Okay.
Certainly. Yes. That'll be very, very nice. Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Should we close here?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Again, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining. All right.
Thank you, Sri
Thank you.
Ashish.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. Right.
Bye bye.